Okay, so recently I've become a chicken farmer, but what I'm showing you here is how to use your eggshells as a source of calcium for your chickens. So if you take the eggshells and you crush them and you grind them up and then you mix it into the chicken feed, it's kind of like the equivalent of giving them, the oyster shells that you can mix into their feed, because it gives them that calcium back into their diet, and then they can make harder. Their eggshells are harder. So one of the ways I make sure I'm not wasting is I put all the eggshells in this big Ziploc bag here, and then you just kind of crush them by hand. And then you go get yourself a little coffee grinder. You could use a mortar and pestle, but that would take way too much time and just be a little too nerdy even for me. I'd feel like I was Gandalf trying to make a potion or something. So I just use this, which works fine, and plug it in. Dump some of the eggshells into the grinder, and then you just hit the button and it turns it into that powder. Once you get enough of that powder, I'm going to pause and show you what it looks like to put the shells in and then turn it into that powder. Okay, one thing I should mention, I just opened up a window there. When you're working on this kind of stuff, you want to make sure that you have a well-ventilated area, or you have a gas mask on or something. You don't want this calcium powder type of stuff in your lungs. It's just not good for you. So here's what it looks like now. I'll dump some of this into there and grind that up, and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so I've poured some in there. Now I'm going to go ahead and grind that up. You can see the lid's on. Just hold the button. Go ahead and grind those up. Just kind of turn it back and forth, make sure you're getting a good grind on there. Doesn't have to be completely fine powder. Just small enough that you can mix it into the feed and they're not going to notice it. And they're going to eat it. And that's one of the ways you can supplement your chicken's diet, by utilizing eggshells. Okay, so more about making your own feed. Thought I'd show you a little bit about how I mix. Now obviously, imagine this on a grander scale. What I use to mix, I use just storage bins, and then I just mix 3 equal parts, and I just dump them back and forth until it's mixed. I used to do it by hand and use like a garden tool to kind of mix, and that's just it takes way too long, and you don't get a good mix anyway. So here's layer crumble. You can get this at Cal Ranch or anywhere, and that helps egg production because it's crumble. I like the crumble versus the pellet because I've listened to quite a few people on the internet, watched a lot of videos. They say that the crumble has like clay in it. That's how they get it to be in those little pellet shapes, and I don't want to feed my chickens clay, so I think it's more expensive. I just think it's kind of a dumb thing. I'd rather give them the crumble. So that's crumble. I'll buy a bag of the crumble. Then this corn, there was like a fun park kind of close to me, and they were advertising on like this website where I checked for free stuff. They had 20 tons of corn they were giving away. So I took my trailer over there and filled it full of corn, and I have like a giant, like inflatable pool full of corn. So this is what I've been feeding them, is full corn pieces, not cracked corn. And, there's always the debate, whole corn versus cracked corn. Some people say, well, I don't like to use the whole corn because then there's little sprouts of corn that'll grow up in your yard. I don't think that would bother me. I think I'd just transplant it into the garden and have more food. So I don't care about using whole corn versus cracked corn. They say that the whole corn does keep the chickens warmer in the winter, though, and so because they basically eat the food and convert that to energy, and if it's in whole pieces, they swallow it and they have to digest it. So I've been using whole corn this winter. My chickens seem pretty happy. I put a little heat lamp in their coop too, just to give them some extra warmth, and their egg production went up when I did that. So if you can see the eggs over here, I think we're doing pretty good. This is just like a week or so's worth of eggs. So we're doing pretty good, and even our little tiny chicken is cranking out these little tiny baby eggs, and they're adorable. I laugh every time I see one, except for this video, because I'm trying to be serious. Eric, my assistant here, is going to show you how we supplement their diet also with just bread. We go to the bread store and buy the bread that's like expiring. This is, old since October 30th. They will sell it to you. You have to sign a little piece of paper saying that you're not going to use it for human consumption. But pretty straightforward. If it doesn't have mold on it, it's going to be okay for the chickens. I'll show you the quick way to break that up. Go ahead and show them like traditional breaking style, and then show them the way that we discovered. So there's traditional breaking style, like you're trying to prepare the sacrament, but the chickens aren't that picky. You don't need to have perfect little chunks that are like equally sized. So how do I do it? Go ahead and show them the speedy way.
This?
You don't know how, so I'm going to have you hold the camera. Hang on. Oh, just stop. Stop. Okay, so this is how I like to do it. You take the bread, and you can take like 2 pieces at a time and just kind of rub them together in your hands like this. Just kind of smash them up, and then before you know it, you just got pieces. It does kind of make a mess, so it's good to do it outside where you're already feeding the chickens. I try not to make a huge mess because I don't want, either scavenger birds or like doves and pigeons and stuff to come and eat the leftover food. I just don't want to encourage a bunch of animals to be around my chickens so that they don't get killed. Cats and whatnot roaming around. So I try to keep the food from getting all over the backyard. But that's one way to do it. You just use your hands and just kind of smash it all together. And then you've got a nice big pile of bread. Now, obviously, you don't want to feed your chickens straight bread. It's bad for them. But if you supplement and just give them bread every now and then, it's great. It's a good supplement for them. So that's one thing that we do. And I got like 120 loaves for about $10 at the baker, the local baker over there, because they just have to get rid of it. So we're still using like a loaf a day, sometimes even 2 loaves a day, and we still have plenty. So I can't go through this bread fast enough to feed the chickens, and we have quite a few chickens. But they just don't eat it that fast. They do like it, but they won't eat just the bread. So then I give them this as well, the layer crumble with the whole corn. And then you just mix in a little bit of this. Make sure, like I was saying before, you don't breathe in that dust. So either do it in a heavily ventilated area or wear like a gas mask or something. You just mix it in so they don't really notice it, because they're not going to just eat the pieces of broken eggshell. They'll kind of like pick through it, but if it's mixed in there real good, they're going to be eating it whether they like it or not, and that's going to strengthen their eggs, strengthen the shell of their eggs. So that's kind of what you want when you're done, is for it to look like that. Alright, so I just finished breaking up that bread, and then we mixed everything in. So we mixed in the egg shell powder. This was the layer crumble, and this was the whole corn. Mixed them together, just used like a big empty cheese ball bin thing. Mixed them together, dumped it into the bag, sealed it off. Now that's pretty much like a day or two's worth of food for the chickens that I have. But if we do that, pre-make a couple of bags like that, and I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, obviously, because I don't want the bread to be bad or to be too dry in there, but that's what I've been feeding them, and that would take care of them. So if we make a couple of bags ahead of time, we'll be good. We won't have to do it every single time when we go to feed them. That was another idea we just had to save resources and to make our feed nice. Now, I have heard different people online how they have different mixes that have a certain amount of protein. I am going to be trying some different recipes and some different feed mixes later when I can go get some more feed over at Cal Ranch. But basically, feeding them table scraps is good. One thing you do want to avoid, I'm going to bring some over to show you. You never want to feed chickens avocado for some reason. Heard it makes them sick, so don't feed them avocado. And also, if you feed chickens onion, that is apparently bad for them too. So I had some onions that I made breakfast with earlier today. Cracked the egg inside the onion. My kid was telling me how he saw a life hack. Put that in the pan, obviously get a bigger ring. Put a big onion ring, crack in an egg, cook it that way because then it keeps the egg inside the onion ring. Good idea. Worked pretty good for my breakfast this morning. But you don't want to feed chickens garlic or onions or peppers because apparently your eggs will taste like that. Now, I want to experiment because I think that'd be awesome to have an egg that tasted like onion, garlic, and pepper. You wouldn't even have to season it. So maybe I will feed one of my chickens a specific diet and see if I can determine what egg comes from which chicken that way. Just to see. But I've heard that. So you don't want to feed them those things unless you do want your eggs to taste like onion, garlic, and pepper. Never meant to make your daughter cry. I apologized 1,000,000,000 times. Sorry, Miss Jackson. Woo, I am for real. Shake it. Shake it like a Polaroid picture. You gotta shake the mix. Shake it. Shake it. Come on, shake it like a Polaroid picture. Shake it. Shake it. Shake it. Hi, guys.
Now all Beyonce's